David,
I'm happy
David, this
to
is
give,
like a
I'm happy
this is like
to
a
give
skins
this
match.
one.
I'm gonna concede. No, I'm gonna
No,
concede this question.
You don't need to concede it. I'll concede it.
I'm conceding this year.
No,
You have won
you're
this year.
conceding the year.
I'm
He's
conceding
conceding the whole year.
2025. You have the most great questions by
why
far.
I love this?
Welcome to Wait What? Sportsbiz Chat with DP and McGhee, the podcast where we take a sometimes irreverent, sometimes cynical, and yes, even a sometimes serious look at the business of sports. I'm your co-host, Tim McGhee.
And I'm David Parro.
David, what do you got going on?
It's, usual, I guess, a ton of stuff going on. And I want to start in the domain that you usually kick off, and that's MLS and soccer and football, because I think you probably know that sport a little better. But I think it's the big news, partly because we've talked about the expected schedule change for quite a bit of time. And then that announcement after a Board of Governors meeting finally has come to pass last week. On the 13th of November, it was announced that MLS will be moving to the international schedule with a few twists, which I thought was interesting. And then on top of that, on same news day, I guess, Commissioner Garber announced a change to the Apple deal, which I really do want to dive in with you on, because I think it's important what it says and maybe what it doesn't say. But just, to update everyone, it's going to be a summer to spring format, similar to the rest of the global football schedule. I think you and I are in concurrence that if MLS is ever going to advance up the ranks, it needs to be on that schedule. One of the interesting things is that there will be this transitional season from February to May in 2027, and this happens after World Cup year in 2027. But there will be this transitional 14-game sprint season from February to May in 2027 before the actual new format begins, and that's pretty interesting. So let's, I'll stop there and kind of get your thoughts on that from a schedule standpoint.
Well, we've talked about it in the past. I think MLS had to do this. They had to be in alignment with the rest of the football world for any number of reasons, not the least of which is the transfer window. It's going to make it easier for players to come into and leave MLS. I don't understand the concept of the sprint season. Maybe you know more than I do. I don't understand it because it's a 14-match season. Maybe it's for sponsors. Maybe it's for a commitment to FIFA in terms of number of matches. Maybe it's a commitment to Apple. But with all the talk that we've heard over the last several years about the number of matches that these footballers around the world have to play, you're adding a short season, which is less than half of a regular MLS season. I don't understand what the league gets out of it. And I'd like to know. I'm not poo-pooing it. There's probably a very good reason. I just don't know what it is.
My initial thought is that you have something where fans are expecting a normal season to have started, and not going from MLS Cup 2026 to waiting all that time for the 2027 season to start. And it does give Apple another season, and that's an important piece of this because MLS and Apple have actually shortened their agreement to end at least currently in 2029 and pull it out of the League Pass and actually have it behind only one paywall, that being the Apple subscription, which I think is a necessary move for Apple. But man, it doesn't. I don't think it ends up looking good that they're cutting it short. They're changing the money, and the money on a per season basis, I think, is increased. So that's a positive. But it's a hard one to spin positively, I think. So I think this transitional season is partly because they have to have a product.
That must be the reason. I think coming out of the Board of Governors meeting, I think that news was almost as big as the change to the schedule, to the calendar, almost because it wasn't expected. I think I agree. I don't know how you spin it positively, but what I would say is this: I think they may have been ahead of their time, MLS and Apple, in terms of creating this subscription MLS Pass program, and they realized that. And they gave it a couple of years. They had enough data points to do it. obviously there's implications because Messi got a piece of every Apple MLS Pass subscription. The league got a cut of every MLS Pass subscription. So they've got to make whole Messi on this because he's announced that he's going to continue to play in the league. But I said, this was the biggest news to come out of MLS. These two stories were the biggest news to come out of MLS since they decided that they would join the rest of the world and count up on the clock as opposed to down like the rest of American sports, right? Because if you remember back at the launch of the league, they counted down like the rest of American sports, and they quickly abandoned that. But this was,
I think this is all. Listen, we're heading into the conference semifinals this weekend for MLS Cup, and Inter Miami is still in it. And that's an exciting development, I think. So, I mean, hopefully they'll have, for the league's sake, they will have some really good storylines coming in, some good teams with some really good local followings still in, to be able to talk about and explain some of these things and get people, I think, on board. I think ultimately, leagues and team owners want to be on the most basic tier there is. In the case of Apple, which again is a subscription service, being on the basic tier means it's just available because you have that subscription, similar to anything on, say, Netflix, rather than being kind of bunched in an extra tier, which the MLS League Pass was an extra tier. So I think that overall is good, but that changes the economics of the expectation. And I think after a couple years, to your point, a reassessment of this, what's the best move going forward? And this at least gives a chance, I think, over the next few years, and then that the season with the new calendar format, to be able to see if this makes sense. And, Apple may be in play after that, or they could prove out that it's so strong that it has another home. We'll see. So we'll be in a negotiation sooner than we thought on the MLS TV rights deal. But I think, listen, there have been so many positives that have happened with MLS over the last few years. The TV number situation, I remember when we first reported, when they finally announced what it was, and the number was not good. This at least changes that dynamic a little bit. But I think for the long-term health of the league, as it tries to ascend in the ranks, this is vital. And then being more, it's not over the air necessarily because it's still a streamer, but it's closer to the over the air concept. And this isn't just the national games of the week. This is everything. This is the entire package.
Yeah. When I was at AT&T, we did our NCAA deal every 3 years. And every 3 years it was, I wouldn't say we were starting from scratch, but what was being contemplated in one deal was completely outdated by the next deal 3 years later in terms of technology and things like that. And I think MLS and Apple or at least MLS finds themselves in a similar situation. What is the media landscape going to look like in 2029 when this deal ends?
Mm-hmm. That's a great point.
I think things are moving to streaming. Maybe they move too quickly to that extra level of subscription that we talked about earlier. But maybe, NBC Sports obviously, has relaunched their sports network. They, I think, are going to be aggressive going after sports. And then you've got Versant and them going after sports. So maybe Garber and Gary Stevenson, as he's, preparing to retire, are looking out at the landscape and saying, there might be a very, a much different, a much more aggressive competitive landscape for our product in 2029.
Mm-hmm. One other thing that I think people need to keep in mind in this story is that the offering to Apple was the entire, basically a national regional sports network, something that Adam Silver in the NBA has talked quite a bit about. And that every game was available, the local game. So when we think about it, it wasn't necessarily a crazy idea to go behind an MLS League Pass because you're getting all of those local games, and you would normally pay a lot of money for your local RSN.
Okay, so I would say two things. Number one, it wasn't just national and local; it was global, because those games are available globally. But the issue comes in that because they put most of the matches at the same time, it was very difficult to watch more than one match. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed as well.
Oh, yeah, it was fraught.
So if let's say you're and younger fans in particular tend to be more fans of players than teams. But I'm thinking, focus group of one of me. I'm a Red Bull supporter, but if I can only watch Red Bulls and then I can't watch Messi play, that's not ideal for me, right? Because there are players in the league I would love to, to watch play besides just my Red Bulls.
Well, listen, I think a big point here is that as they head toward MLS Cup, MLS had some big announcements, and as they have a lot over the last few years, I think it's good for them to be at the center. But this TV thing obviously needed some adjustments. It's good that it's kind of gotten out now, and hopefully over the next couple of weeks, as the league crowns a champion, we will see how many other stories come out about it or explanations about the things we've just discussed. By the way, I should say the commissioner showed up at past guest Frank Vuno's celebration for his SBJ champion fundraiser that they did for Hackensack Medical, which was really cool. They were obviously, peers and co-workers at the NFL way back when.
Mm-hmm. It's right down the street from his house, so hopefully
yeah,
it wasn't tough for him to get there.
Yeah, it's a lot harder for me to get there, by the way. But.
Yeah.
All right, what do you got?
Somewhere in the swamps of Jersey.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of my good friend from college who said famously, everybody lives in New Jersey once in their life. So what do I got? I thought of you, my friend, when I heard that the Disney YouTube TV impasse was broken and they came to agreement on a new deal.
Yeah, I was excited. Coming off of our discussion last week, I did go in, and it was kind of, as I suspect, it was a little bit of a pain in the ass because I had to reclaim it and go on. I did get my $20. I was not going to leave that on the table. It wasn't that hard to do, but they do make you go in and claim it. It wasn't just an automatic thing. So that's what annoyed me. But it is great, and one of the big settlements, because I think this was a big thing for Disney, right? I mean, and it was interesting because the Google folks that own YouTube TV, they were saying they got why ESPN was so expensive. They were supposedly questioning the pricing for ABC, which is just so funny the times that we're in. But they did come to an agreement, and now the ESPN streaming product will be available over YouTube TV, which is actually, I think, a very exciting development. So that was a piece that Disney, I think, wanted to make sure that they got in, and they ended up probably settling on something that doesn't have to be called a favored nations rate, but probably gets them close to what would actually be a favored nations rate. So I'm happy.
Good.
I'll stick with them for a while.
I was going to say, now I can look into them because I know I won't have to worry about the wonderful world of Disney going away.
What do you think about the new NBA All-Star format? They finally think they figured out. I haven't figured it out yet, but it's an international format, 4 teams playing multiple games, 1 international team, 3 U.S. teams. I really think we need to get Kelly back on here and tell us what it all means.
Doesn't that kind of hose some international players?
I think so.
Given the number of international players in the league right now?
Well, I think they have the ability to name like the top players, because it's still going to be a fan and media driven thing with some, I guess, wild card slots. That's how I understand it. One of the most interesting things I find about the All-Star game is that it's being played in Intuit Dome this year. So what do you think the big storylines are going to be around All-Star this year? I've read up a little bit on the new format, and I'm excited for them because they needed to do something, because it's been a complete, it's been a bit of a, no one's taking it particularly seriously. It does seem a bit complex, but I guess if the games have some drama and passion by the players and real effort by the players, who knows? Maybe it'll be something that actually works.
Yeah, and that's what really comes down to, is how much effort the players put. Still, I love the Major League Baseball All-Star game because you don't have to. You can't really tell if they're trying hard or not, right? It's not, maybe the guy doesn't go first to third, but by and large, they play very similarly to the way they play during the regular season. But I will say, number one, to go back to soccer for a second, I really like the MLS versus Liga MX match this past summer in Austin. I thought it was good soccer. But go back 2.5 years ago, almost at this point, where the WNBA All-Stars played Team USA. Now that was an All-Star game. Mm-hmm. That was where both teams were going hammer and tongs at one another, and there was no question that they were trying very hard. Both teams were trying very hard to win.
Yeah.
And that was fun. But I don't know if you'll ever see it. You'll certainly never see it in football or hockey or basketball.
Well, we'll see. I certainly feel like I'll want to tune in a little more just to check out how this thing is. I think part of the point is to showcase the fact that it truly is an international game, and there are so many top players now that are coming from outside of the United States. But I think your point is an interesting one. Will it leave enough room for the great players that are indeed from outside of the United States to make that roster? And I think some of that's going to be on Adam Silver to make sure that it's filled up the right way.
Coincidentally, just yesterday, we're recording on a Tuesday. Just yesterday, both Victor Wembanyama and Giannis Antetokounmpo left their respective games with injuries. Two international players who most certainly would, if healthy, would make the international squad.
Not only, international players that are having absolute banger years.
Wembanyama is ridiculous.
Wemby highlights are so crazy, and Giannis's are always great. What's his last name, by the way?
I'm not sure how you say it.
No, come on. You had it down. You had it down for the first 3 years of this thing.
I still have it down.
Okay.
Antetokounmpo.
Awesome. See, I just want you to be able to show off your linguistic skills.
Nice.
But yeah, it's just been a blast watching.
Don't ask me to say his brother's last name. I don't know how to say his brother's last names. Wemby is reminds me of I was too young to remember seeing him play, but the highlights of seeing Wilt Chamberlain when he was going against virtually anybody other than Bill Russell.
Yeah, he kind of is Wilt with the modern game. He can shoot when he needs to. As skinny as he is, that bit with Draymond Green the other day, that was just great stuff. Great stuff. Loved it. All right, we got a little time before guests. What else do you have?
Well, in the world of gambling scandals.
Yeah, which seems like a weekly segment now, huh?
Well, the United States has proven not to have a monopoly on that. The Turkish Football Association recently announced that they suspended over 1,000 players, several from the first division, but most of them from the second and third division clubs, as well as 149 referees, all related to gambling. And the top players who were named all came out very aggressively in their own defense. So it'll be interesting. I don't know if basically the Turkish Football Association just wants to clean house and start from scratch or what's going on, but it'll be interesting to watch because, like I said, those top players were very, very. They did not leave themselves any wiggle room in terms of whether or not they did anything illegal or unethical in their games. So.
Yeah, so the voices in this story are out super aggressively talking about, see how easy it is for us to catch them now because the data's in place, we have all the tools in place, it's regulated properly, and therefore we're seeing all this stuff quickly and we're able to act and shut that stuff down and expose it. And that's not untrue, but it doesn't seem it's almost like two different arguments, right? It's like that's a straw man against what might be happening here. The availability of money and the ease with which to make it via betting seems to be an overpowering force, if you will, to do it. I mentioned this to you earlier. Your former governor from your state, Chris Christie, who I think we can probably guess is probably doing a little bit of lobbying work. He's been out aggressively talking about, because New Jersey was the one that initially put the case forward to get it approved by, or to get it through to the Supreme Court to allow sports betting outside of Nevada. And it's now what we're living with. And so he's strongly saying this is all good. It's all still for the best because it's regulated. But I don't know. It seems not to be addressing a lot of the more serious issues about ease of betting and the problems that come from it. And can people, even just as a fan, watch this stuff on a normal basis feeling like there's not something going on beyond, if I'm betting, and am I betting on a credible, honest competition?
Yeah. So I want to say a couple things. Number one, I haven't read the article, so I don't know the full context, but both DraftKings and FanDuel announced that they were leaving the American Gaming Association. I suspect it might have something to do with these prediction markets, but I said, we can talk about more next week. When I get up in the morning, I turn on CBS Sports Network and I watch Boomer and Geo. I find them entertaining. I find them knowledgeable. And every Friday they make their picks. So Boomer Esiason, Greg Giannotti, Gio, and a guy named Jerry Recco who does Rutgers games. There's 3 on-air guys. And their records are horrible. Like, one guy went like 0-5 last week, and none of the three
Against
had
spreads, I take it.
Well, yeah. They don't...
Because they shouldn't be that bad if they're not betting against spreads.
Yeah, but my point is, these guys know infinitely more about football than the average bettor. They just do. I mean, that's what they do. That's their job. They're sports casters, right? They're talk show hosts, sports talk show hosts, and they do horribly. So what chance does the average bettor have if these guys are so bad at it? Which just goes back, I guess my long-winded point, and hopefully I have one, is that it just goes back to why, we talk about you and I, neither one of us bet. That's another reason why I don't bet. What chance do I have?
I wonder, I have not looked at this, but I wonder how much sports betting in general, now we have so many different things you can bet on, what the odds are, because you always hear that the house pretty much controls, the house is always going to win in a normal gambling setup, whether it's blackjack or roulette or poker or slots even, right? The house is always going to win. That's why it's such easy money for casinos. Unless
you,
don't say it. Don't.
I don't know. We're talking about the great state of New Jersey. There were a couple of casinos here several years back that the owner went bankrupt. Let's just leave it at that.
Right, it's supposed to be just ridiculously easy to make money.
It's virtually a license to print money.
Is sports betting, and again, back to time, we talk about it over and over again. I don't even want to belabor that point about the way that they promote the bets and the free bets and all the credits you get to be able to bet. How are people doing? I'm guessing not well. And the states are, by the way, the states are making a ton of money on this, and if it's going to be legal, they should be making money on it.
Yeah, I think New York gets like 51% of the take, something ridiculous. Yeah, I think that's like that. I think New York gets the highest cut of all the states.
It's New York, baby. What do you say? Want to take a quick break?
Or do you have
let's
something
do it.
else
Before we jump on.
Oh, I always have something else, but we'll take a break.
Yeah, well, we can cover it later. Okay, we'll be right back.
It's time for our guest.
We are back, and we are pleased to welcome our guest this week. Karl Mawhinney is the CEO and founder of Campus Multimedia. Campus Multimedia helps elementary, middle, and high schools get support from sponsor brands while meeting the needs of schools and their students. Prior to launching Campus Multimedia, Karl started his career in college sports with roles at Ohio State and later at Penn State. I guess you led the way for Jim Knowles to make that transition from the Ohio State University to Penn State. He had stops along the way at the A10, the MAC Conference, Learfield, Lagardère, Van Wagner, and worked with a very iconic property, one that's close to my heart, the Harlem Globetrotters, as well as others. So welcome to the show, Karl.
Thanks, guys. It's good to be on.
So let's get started. So historically, brands that wanted to reach that K-12 audience of students and their parents found it very challenging. How do you think Campus Multimedia has cracked that nut?
Hey, look, we've cracked it because you just said my experience, my professional career. It's been a unique ride. The first half of it was basically college sponsorships. Like you said, I sold the Big East or ISB Sports before it was Learfield, IMG. The back half of it has been sponsorships and marketing, but actually more family entertainment with the Globetrotters, like you said, as well as schools and high schools specifically, and even kids media, into elementary, middle schools. So the dynamic between college sponsorships into pro and athlete sponsorships with some of my stints, and then to the schools, honestly found a way and kind of saw an opportunity where brands can come alongside schools the way they do it in the pro and college sponsorships and marketing in a unique way. And it's kind of really the impetus for launching Campus Multimedia almost 5 years ago. Just like imagine taking the playbook and what has been done in pro and college for years, right? And now applying that into the K through 12 space, specifically in the high school space, but now, applying it with purpose-driven, school partnerships. That's a game changer, and doing it more in an authentic and organic way and coming alongside those schools to provide value. and you both being sports folks like I am, there's this crazy stat I saw. It's something like more fans attend high school sporting events than all of the major leagues combined, college and pro. It's something like 510 million fans. I mean, if you think about it, it kind of makes sense, right? There's over 25,000 high schools. Over half of those have sports. So the families, the students attending those, it's a pretty cool stat. So really, we've enabled brands to engage with local communities through the K through 12 schools, reaching students, faculty, staff, and their families. And why wouldn't they? It's where the future of their customers are coming from, right? And we really do it in three or four key areas, at least through sports sponsorships. One is the what you see in the other areas, integrated marketing programs, right? DoorDash. DoorDash does a phenomenal program with us across the entire school year. Started out in high school athletics, is now expanded to student bodies, working school counselors. They're doing a Student Athlete of the Year award. We do a lot of sports sponsorships integration. Jersey Mike's, and Tim, you know Jersey Mike's very well. We work with them tremendously, and one of the things they've done is taken their college Naismith sponsorship and created a high school Naismith Award, and we've been helping them with that for almost 5 years now, called the Jersey Mike's Courage Award. So we're bringing these professional or pro intellectual properties and partnerships that these brands have into the K through 12 space in a unique way. The third of the fourth is these premier events, creating these premier events like the college game days that are out there. We've created one in Georgia called the Countdown to Kickoff. It's a college game day style atmosphere, but in high school football. And there's a media component to it. There's a pregame show. There's crazy fan base. It's awesome. And then even Broward Showcase is a nationally televised showcase of high school football teams, top 10 in the country, that is in Broward County in Florida. And lastly is the traditional sponsorships. We have found and have really seen a lot of interest in brands doing traditional sponsorships in high schools. That's signage, PA announcements, game entitlements, and yes, even naming rights. And frankly, NIL has been brought up in the high school space in some states as well. So that's really how we've been able to crack the nut in the K through 12 space, imagining what has been being done in the pro and college space.
Yeah. We've a quick follow-up question. I'm sorry, David, before I hand it off to you. Karl, this is such a fragmented marketplace. How have you aggregated, and to what extent have you aggregated the rights? What's that type of size and scope and scale are we talking about here?
Yeah, look, you're right. It is. That's been one of the problems one of the issues why it's been difficult for brands to get into the space. It's very fragmented. There's over 25,000, just to put in perspective to answer your question, there's over 25,000 high schools, closer to 28,000 when you look at public, private, charter, Catholic, all that stuff. Half of that have sports. Our network is about 20,000 of those high schools. So to put into perspective, there's about 28,000 high schools. Our network of high schools that we can get to and work with, about 20,000. Elementary schools, we have a network of about 50,000 elementary schools, and there's about 80,000 plus elementary schools, and we're just starting to get into middle schools right now, to put in perspective.
That's pretty amazing. As Tim pointed out, Karl, you've had a background in working with on the property side, a lot of time on the collegiate side, where you've been in biz dev roles, and then it's just been so cool to watch you as you've kind of developed on this entrepreneurial side as well, but with something that you just know and have passion for. So in true spirit of entrepreneurialism, I suppose, it doesn't seem like you're resting on the laurels of Campus Multimedia, and you have developed a new product basically that I think operates a little separately in Sponsor Place, which I think is a bit of a matchmaking service to help both sides of that buy-sell transaction in the sponsorship space. Take us through what that means, and as a follow-up, and I'll ask my follow-up in advance, is do you have a sense that this could have application beyond that K through 12 that you're focused on right now?
Yeah. So to answer your question, I talked about sponsorships. One of the issues in schools right now across the country, and that's K through 12, but let's focus on high schools, budgets are getting cut. Budgets are getting cut for sports teams, athletics, as well as general school. school activities. So, the reason we've received a lot of requests from brands on sponsorships is from the marketing play, but it's actually a need in schools to drive more revenue. So that is the reason we launched Sponsor Place a little over a year ago now. It's Sponsor Place for those who aren't aware, it's fairly new. It's really the first of its kind marketplace that enables schools, or to answer your question, your second question, or any entity that wants to sell sponsorships, to have it easily accessible on a website. It's as simple as that. We've seen really great success. It is a marketplace where we have schools and brands buying sponsorships with schools. It has enabled, first and foremost, schools to generate more revenue locally through sponsorships very easily. And then second, it's enabled brands to support more schools through sponsorships by finding them, other than calling the school. And a lot of us who have worked in schools can know how difficult it is to reach schools. So it's really made the process of creating that relationship between brands and schools much more seamless and easier. And look, our goal is to get many schools in a certain area, so that one, there can be kind of pricing comparisons for brands, and two, brands can buy very seamlessly with a touch of a button. Where we have found the most success is where we have many schools in one area, either a market, a DMA, or even a statewide or regional or even national, where brands can buy at bulk, at scale. And I guess to give you some perspective, we talked about the reach of Campus Multimedia. We've scaled pretty quickly. We have several hundred schools live on the platform right now. We cover over 21 school districts. Our goal is to be in every single 50 states by the end of 2026, with nationwide expansion. And I will say the earliest adopter from a district-wide perspective is Broward County. Broward is the 6th largest school district in the country. They have over 250 elementary, middle, and high schools. About 6 months ago, they announced they are using Sponsor Place exclusively for elementary, middle, and high school sponsorships. And it's been very successful. And I said, yes, they are using it for elementary sponsorships, field day sponsorships, PTO days, stuff like that. So that's why we created it. That's a success. To answer your second question, David, absolutely. So first and foremost, we created it for athletic directors and high school sports. That's where the need was and their ask was. But now it's expanded to beyond athletics. Principals and assistant principals are using this for non-athletic events, spirit weeks, stuff like that, to sponsor those spirit weeks. Second, elementary and middle schools are now starting to use it for sponsorships. We have an elementary school in Atlanta, Georgia, that has driven $30,000 in found revenue through Sponsor Place just by having their page up and spreading the word through social media. $30,000 for an elementary school, a small elementary school, is pretty awesome.
Oh, yeah.
And then furthermore, we do see an application for Division II and Division III schools. In fact, we have launched our first D2 school on the platform. Sioux Falls is one of our first college, is our first college, and we do see that expanding in Division II and Division III. And frankly, I see a bigger opportunity in youth sports. We all have seen a lot of news and youth sports expansion, and by youth sports I mean 14 and under. We see a lot of opportunity in youth sports entities and tournaments and stuff like that out there.
When you look at your client base, and when I talk about client base, I'm not talking about the brand side. I'm talking about the schools, particularly administrators, principals, athletic directors. And this is a bit of a, moto question, right? Master of the obvious. What are they looking to solve for? What are their challenges in their respective roles that you Campus Multimedia as well as Sponsor Place can help? I'm obviously driving revenue, but what else?
So it's become a very common theme, the three main areas that schools are asking for need. We actually we call it our 3 R's: resources, recognition, and revenue. So quickly, resources, they want more resources to reward student athletes or students. They mental health kits. We do a lot of mental health kits in elementary school. So just general resources that teachers and staff can use in their daily lives. Second is recognition. It's actually our number one request. Coaches, athletic directors, principals, school counselors, they've asked us for more ways to recognize and reward their students and their staff. teachers are buying gift cards of their own, right, and their own money and giving it to students for, Billy doing something great today. Let's empower brands to give that to them, to provide recognition resources. And then the third, which we just talked about, is revenue. That is the second highest request we get from schools is revenue. And that's how we've kind of imagined brands can solve those three areas: the resources, recognition, and revenue.
Want you to spend a little time kind of going back at this audience a little more, from the perspective of what you're doing now and what you've done for a while. You spent time at Go Noodle and Huddle in CRO roles, and then with the Harlem Globetrotters, and and that was something going after the families and so forth. You actually discussed that recently in the Forbes guest column that you wrote, which was really great to read through. Share with us what those special challenges are that's just different from going to an average, I'm looking for, males 25 to 34 or whatever that case is.
I mean, the biggest challenge is the obvious, and that's the 18 and under. Students in K through 12 are 18 and under. Just a fact, right? And there's a lot of implications that come with that. The way we've been able to really get around that or really come alongside that is to provide the value to the schools. We don't target the students. We actually just partner with the schools to provide them those needs and resources. And that's the biggest challenge and the biggest opportunity, frankly, is those 18 and under are your future customers for these brands. But how do we get them in a way that's authentic? And it's really about providing the everyday needs that the students or the teachers or even the parents have in their daily lives as they take their kids to school and live their lives in the community. So I think that's the biggest challenge is that 18 and unders.
I want you to think back to your time when you worked for whether it was Van Wagner or one of the conferences or one of the universities. You started your career in collegiate marketing, collegiate properties. What are your thoughts on the current state of affairs in college athletics and marketing, whether it's NIL or would love to get your thoughts as somebody who's been there and done that.
Yeah, look, I mean, you're right. It's not just NIL now; it's private equity money getting into the space. Look, I'm glad that I worked in the college space when it wasn't as complicated as it is today, and that's my answer and my thought is it's very complicated today from every aspect, not just even brands, but just from the portal and everything like that. And then you throw in brands and sponsorships and IL, it gets even more complicated. So my answer would be, I think my thought is that it's just so complicated to these days that frankly, I'm glad I was in the space when it was simpler and less complex. So.
Just a quick follow-up on that. You also were a college athlete, a successful college athlete. Well, you can talk about that a little bit, but does that, as someone looking back as a player and looking at it from a current, like, any views on the changes that these athletes are going through?
Honestly, Dave, that's actually a really good question. Look, I was a Division III athlete. I played running back at a Division III school in Ohio, the College of Worcester Fighting Scots. And yes, I didn't even play that much until I was a junior or senior return kicks. But honestly, to answer your question, while I say it's very complex and complicated these days, as a college athlete, I probably would have loved it. I mean, I know these college athletes even some of these D2, D3 student college athletes are actually making money. Even if it's $1,500 a month posting on social media, that's $1,500 that I don't have to work at the gym that I worked at in college. Yeah, honestly, great question. As a professional in the space, I think it's very complicated and a little more of a headache to work in. But as a college athlete, I would absolutely have loved it to help generate revenue in my pocket. And not having to do a traditional job. And I actually worked at the gym on campus to pay my bills. So that's what I did.
This might be the weirdest ruling of any question we've had. We have a weird tradition on this show, Karl, that when someone says great question, we acknowledge the person that wrote it. And Tim drafted pretty much these questions for this week. I ad-libbed that one a tiny bit, but since it really came in under Tim's original question, which was an important one that we did want to cover, because we're not aligned. We're aligned on these, but I don't want to take full credit, but I also didn't want to make him again this year say that was David's question.
All the questions are very
Wait, what? Wait, wasn't this the question that I sent to you, David, and you said I would have asked that question verbatim.
Yes, but I then said I forgot to ask that because Karl was an athlete, and that's what he responded to. This is interesting. So Tim drafted a question, sent it to me, and I'm like, that's the perfect question. The way I had it originally written was, you cut your teeth in the college sports space, care to offer any thoughts on the state of college sports in general and as a sponsorship opportunity? So Tim's question was almost identical. Like he wrote it. So he's getting credit for that question. So I'm not taking credit for the fact that I would have written it similarly. I'm taking credit only 50% on the add-on.
Karl, are you old enough to remember Bugs Bunny cartoons?
Oh, of course. Oh, yes. I'm almost 50.
I don't know if you remember the one where Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck find their way into a treasure trove of doubloons and gold coins and jewelry. And Daffy Duck's running around. He's trying to capture everything. Oh, mine. That's David with questions this year.
I'm happy to say,
David.
I'm happy.
David, this is like a skins match. I'm gonna concede this
You
question.
don't need to concede it. I'll concede.
I'm conceding this year.
No.
You have won this year. I'm conceding 2025. You have the most great questions.
You know why I love this? I love this to the viewers, even if you air this. What I said to these guys before, I've known these guys for 20, 25 years or more. I did not have it on my bingo card to do a podcast with Tim and David this year, and now I'm able to check that off my bingo card.
Yeah,
I love these guys.
Well, listen, we've known you a long time. We've liked you a long time. But compared to some of the other guys we've had on the show, you're like a newbie to David. David had somebody on a couple of weeks ago that he met in the nursery as an infant, and they were like, "Yeah, remember that nurse?" I mean, they go back that far. So we're like you and I are newbies.
Last week, I introduced the guy of having been in the same job for 23 years, and I knew him right when he began it. He corrected me and added 10 more years to it. It was it was embarrassing. I mean, I'm freaking ancient.
Well, to not make you guys feel more Asian, Tim, for what it's worth, I think I first met you when I was 25, 26 years old. You were a bigwig at IMG. David, I met you when I was maybe 30. And I was at
Big I'm a little disappointed. He's known you that much longer.
Yeah,
it took me too long to meet you.
I'm just impressed that Karl's still talking to me after all this time.
Yes, exactly.
Bigwig at IMG. That was for about a week and a half, I think. He caught me at a good time. All right, let's get him out of here. He's a busy man. He's running Sponsor Space, Campus Multimedia. He's got dogs to take care of.
You know what's funny, Tim? It's Sponsor Space. It's actually Sponsor Place, but Sponsor Space.
Sorry.
But funny, Sponsor Space was the second vote. It was going to be Sponsor Space, and we decided to call it Sponsor Place.
I apologize. Sponsor Place. He's busy running Sponsor Place.
You're like, is the alliteration going to work or not work in terms of how it rolls off? I think he made a good call. A good call. All right, closing questions.
Yes.
And we have two. We ask every guest on, as you probably know. First question.
You assume he listens.
I presume any guest that's come on has listened to a few episodes. Yes, I do. I am very presumptuous about the quality. I'm very presumptuous about the quality of our podcast.
You are a blinding light of positivity.
I try to be.
Absolutely.
I use this. I will say this. I'm sorry, Karl. We are really going off the rails here.
I love it.
But there is an old saying in comedy: it is easier to change your audience than to change your material. And every person who tells me that they listen to the podcast, I use the same exact joke. Oh, so you're our listener. David gets offended by that
because we know Tim's not the listener.
We're going to help spread
that's
the
a whole
word
nother story. All right.
We're going to help spread the word with this one. So
yeah, we got Sean Claire working on it.
Exactly.
We have two questions. The first one is,
where'd your career get started? Where'd you started?
I did play D3 football. I always knew I wanted to do something in sports. Back in 2000, 2001, when I graduated from college, it was a thing already, but sports marketing was up and coming. So I actually started in the sports industry because I knew I wanted to work in sports. And funny story, I got my first internship at the Atlantic 10 conference as an intern this summer going into my senior year. because I applied at those days. We didn't have email, so I applied going to the career center at my college and saw a posting for a internship at the Atlantic 10. Sent a letter and then got an interview and got that, and then that's how I got started in the industry. So
I do want to say one thing popped out to me on your resume, because if I recollect correctly, you're a big time University of Michigan Go Blue fan, right?
Go Blue and Lions.
But you had an Ohio State quick stop on your resume, right?
So it pained me, guys. So I was born in Detroit, in Lansing. My father's side is all from Lansing. I'm half Filipino, so my mom is Filipino. We were born in Michigan, but moved to Columbus when we were 6. We moved to the Philippines. So from 6 years old and on, I lived in Columbus, Ohio. Stayed true to my roots. After I graduated from College of Worcester, didn't have a job full time, so I actually worked part time at Ohio State in the athletic department while I worked at Old Navy. And yes, that was my first official, other than my internships. Unfortunately, Ohio State was my first official job in sports other than an internship, and it pains me to this day.
All right.
But you know who I met back then that led partnerships was David Brown, now with IDG.
Oh,
we all know David Brown.
Yeah.
So
what a great guy he is.
Yeah. No doubt.
One of the truly best.
As this NFL season progresses, you and I are going to have some
Yes,
chats about the Bears and the Lions.
I know, the Bears.
All right.
I know.
Second, this is the harder question, Karl. One piece of advice you'd give to someone looking to break into the sports biz?
Yeah, look, I love this question. I get it, and I always answer it with 2 answers. One is, we just talked about relationships. I talked about David Brown. You guys have known, is networking. Your relationships from the beginning of your career will stick with you if you treat people just normal, treat with positivity, always be nice to people, always network, and go out of your way to go to events and meet people your age, older than you, in different parts of the industry. And then the second is, be proactive in asking for meetings from industry experts. One quick story: we have one of our newest employees. She applied for a job with our company in the last 3 months. She was not qualified for the job, but you know what she did? She was the only one out of 250 applicants that messaged me on LinkedIn. And her message was not annoying. It was actually very proactive and said, I'm a college athlete. I saw you would love to work for your company. And I know not necessarily qualified, but would ask for an interview. You know what happened? She got an interview. She didn't get that job, but we actually hired her for another job that we created. So she is now with our company now for 3 months. Because she was proactive and was networking. So that's my answer.
That's great.
That's a great story.
That's a great story.
Well,
all right.
Yeah, Karl, can't thank you enough for coming on. I know you're busy, but we enjoyed it. Hopefully you did as well.
I loved it, guys. It's really good spending time with you.
And sponsor Place. I will not get that wrong again.
We appreciate it, bud.
You'll learn.
Great seeing you.
You too. You guys are great.
Thank you. We'll make sure we get that bit in right there.
Yeah.
We are back. We've had a few chats about the youth space over the last few months with Liz DeLulo-Brown of Little League, Wade Martin of Unrivaled Sports, and now Karl Mawhinney, founder of Campus Multimedia. I'm super excited that we're able to bring these additional perspectives to the show. So a huge thank you there to Karl, someone I've known for a while, and Tim, I know you have as well.
Yeah.
All right, we have reached that time of the show where we take a little bit of a peek ahead, give gratuitous shout-outs, correct the record, just a hodgepodge of stuff. Tim, what do you have your eye on?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Carl Thomas, who had us on his podcast. Was it last week? Yeah, last week. Podcast called Best Boss Ever. And I can't help but think, I wonder what Izzy Mandelbaum would think about that. Do you know who Izzy Mandelbaum is?
I don't.
You don't know who he is? I think you do know who he is. But
yeah.
Izzy Mandelbaum was the character that Lloyd Bridges played on Seinfeld. And with the whole argument between him and Morty about who's the best dad ever.
Yes.
So I wonder if Izzy Mandelbaum would be upset that Karl's taking that title. You think you're stronger than me? Anyway, but thank you to Karl. I thought it was a really fun discussion. Very unique take on the podcast, and so I enjoyed it. I assume you did too.
Yes.
Yeah, just the other shout out. As you know, I am a big college hockey fan. Cornell, a top 20 team. They have won 3 of their first 4 ECAC games, beating Harvard, which is always huge, up in Cambridge. Then going on to lose at Dartmouth, but they swept last weekend. I went up there. They beat Brown and Yale. They are an incredibly young team. They have about 5 or 6 freshmen who are getting significant playing time, including their goaltender. So I'm really excited about this team. It's a long season, but I'm excited about them. They're back home at Lionel Rink this weekend. What about you? What's on your mind?
Well, yeah, it really was fun having that discussion, and Tim, it was great doing that with you. So a fun bit. I don't think that's published yet, but we're looking forward to that coming out.
No, we'll let our listeners know.
Yep.
Because I don't think it's coming out until the first of the year. Unlike us, I think Karl banks a lot of his his episodes and then releases them.
Yeah. Well, it might be a logical strategy. We tend to want to talk about news-related stuff. But I have a couple other quick shout-outs. And a lot of stuff has been coming through because of the movie episode we did a couple weeks ago, which I'm still just having fun with. Jake Laletta, when I said that, sorry to all my Notre Dame fans for saying that I thought Rudy was not just a bad movie, but an untrue movie. I was thinking of Jake, a Notre Dame guy, but he wrote me just basically ripping me for not having Tin Cup and Field of Dreams, I think, on. He said he could let the other thing pass. And then Ben Schlosser, who obviously not only loves hockey, but must have played hockey, gave me a hard time for not having Slapshot even on, with neither of us actually had it on. And then he kind of ridiculed me for not being enough of a hockey guy. So to your point about you being such a hockey guy, Schlosser, who we both know and are friends with, you have way more credibility with Ben Schlosser, obviously, than I do.
Yeah,
because
well,
I'm not as much of a hockey guy.
The one-eyed man is king of the blind, right?
Yeah. And I want to also thank Jennifer Karp, who included us on a post, our podcast on something, and she's been an ongoing supporter of the podcast. So that's great. Quick shout out to Sean Gleason and Professional Bull Riders for announcing their new professional women's rodeo, PWR, which is kind of a natural evolution out of Women's Rodeo World Championship. And so that's going to be a wholly owned property of PBR, which I thought was interesting, offering different events, not just bull riders. So very exciting. And then a shout out to hopefully a future guest, Sarah Cummin, CEO of World Sevens Football. They just announced a broadcast deal, distribution deal with TNT for their upcoming tournament in Fort Lauderdale, which is coming up at the beginning of December. So kind of excited about all of that. So I think that is it.
I think so.
A lot of stuff to cover and a great discussion with Karl. So let's close this out, if that's cool with you.
Sure.
So again, thanks to Karl, Campus Multimedia, for joining us today on the Sportsbiz Chat. Tim, another fun far-flung discussion, so and I always appreciate that. I do want to announce that we are not going to be recording next week in honor of Thanksgiving, and I have to say that I think both of us are very thankful for this show, and we are throw that thanks over to you, the listeners, that spend any bit of time with us during any week. We really do appreciate it. So keep those likes coming, keep those follows coming, keep those subscriptions coming, especially on YouTube. Got to feed the algorithm, man. So we appreciate you doing that. Wishing everybody a safe and happy and joyful Thanksgiving holiday. We'll be back again right after that for a few more weeks before the winter break, the holiday break. Until then, I'm DP, he's McGhee, and we'll talk soon.